The Barrett M82, a 1.50 caliber rifle, weighed 29 pounds unloaded, and Master Sergeant Jake Morrison had watched 3 seasoned Marines struggle to maintain consistent accuracy with it during the past hour. The weapon's recoil could dislocate an unprepared shoulder, and its thunderous report had been known to cause temporary hearing loss, even through proper protection. So when the slight woman in civilian clothes approached the firing line at Quantico's long-range precision shooting course, Morrison's first instinct was to redirect her to the smaller caliber stations. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. Ma'am, the .50 cal demonstration is restricted to military personnel and certified instructors, he called out, his voice carrying the authority of 15 years in the Corps. We've got some excellent .308 setups over. The woman turned, and Morrison found himself looking into eyes the color of storm clouds, set in a face that might have been carved from marble for all the emotion it showed. She was perhaps 30, with auburn hair pulled back in a severe ponytail, and the kind of lean build that suggested serious athletic training. What struck him most, though, was the way she moved with the precise economy of motion he'd only seen in operators who'd spent years perfecting their craft. Sergeant Elena Vasquez, she said, producing credentials that made Morrison's eyebrows climb toward his hairline. Pentagon Special Projects Division. I'm here for the evaluation. Morrison glanced at the documents, then at the scheduling board, where her name appeared in red ink, the color reserved for classified assessments. He'd been wondering all morning who was important enough to warrant a private session with the Corps' most challenging precision rifle. Now he was looking at her, and she couldn't weigh more than 120 soaking wet. Of course, Sergeant. My apologies. He gestured toward the massive rifle resting on its bipod at the 1,000-yard line. Though I should mention, this particular weapon system requires. I'm familiar with the Barrett specifications. Elena interrupted, already walking toward the firing position. Muzzle velocity of 2,800 feet per second. Effective range out to 1,800 meters. And enough recoil energy to knock an unprepared shooter on their ass. Behind Morrison, the 3 Marines who'd been struggling with the rifle exchanged glances. Corporal Danny Hayes, a sniper with 2 combat deployments, muttered something under his breath about civilians and their delusions of competence. Elena knelt behind the rifle without ceremony, her movements fluid and practiced. She adjusted the bipod legs with quick, sure motions, then settled into a shooting position that Morrison recognized as textbook perfect. Her left hand found the foregrip naturally. Her right fell to the pistol grip with the casual familiarity of someone who'd done this thousands of times. She pressed her cheek to the stock and peered through the massive Leupold scope, making minute adjustments to the turrets. Wind speed? She asked without looking up. Morrison checked his instruments. 4 knots from the southwest, gusting to 7. Elena nodded, her finger finding the trigger as she settled deeper into her position. The rifle seemed to dwarf her small frame, yet somehow she made it look manageable, natural even. Morrison found himself holding his breath as she made final adjustments to her scope. The target at 1,000 yards was a standard precision shooting board with scoring rings that would challenge any marksman. The Marines had been averaging scores in the 70s out of a possible 100, which was respectable for the .50 caliber at that distance. Morrison expected the woman to take several sighting shots, maybe ask for coaching on managing the recoil. Instead, Elena exhaled slowly, held her breath at the natural respiratory pause, and squeezed the trigger. The Barrett's report was like thunder contained in a metal tube. The muzzle brake redirected gases with violent efficiency, kicking up dust in a 20-foot radius around the firing position. The rifle bucked with enough force to slide a grown man backward on the concrete if he wasn't properly braced. Elena absorbed the recoil like she'd been born to it, her body moving in perfect harmony with the weapon's violent energy. Before the dust had settled, she was already working the bolt, chambering a fresh round with mechanical precision. Impact? She called out. Morrison raised his binoculars, expecting to see a miss or at best a hit somewhere in the outer rings. What he saw instead made him lower the glasses and look again to make sure his eyes weren't playing tricks on him. "Kfring," he announced, his voice carrying a note of disbelief. Dead center. The three Marines moved closer, their skepticism replaced by sudden interest. Hayes grabbed his own binoculars and confirmed the hit, shaking his head in amazement. Elena was already settling in for her second shot, making slight adjustments to account for the wind shift she'd apparently detected. This time Morrison watched her technique more carefully, noting the way she managed the rifle's substantial weight, how she positioned her body to absorb and redirect the recoil, the mechanical precision of her breathing, and trigger control. The second shot thundered downrange. Another X-ring hit, this one less than an inch from the first dot by the fifth shot. Word had spread through the range complex. Instructors and students from other courses had gathered behind the firing line, drawn by reports of someone shooting. Perfect scores with the .50 caliber. Elena seemed oblivious to the crowd, her focus absolute as she worked through her 10-round string. When the firing pin clicked on an empty chamber, Morrison called for a ceasefire and activated the target. Retrieval system. The 1,000-yard target came back, showing a single ragged hole in the X-ring, with all 10 shots clustered in a group smaller than a man's fist. It was the kind of precision Morrison had seen maybe twice in his career, and never with the challenging .50 caliber platform. Elena stood, cleared the weapon, and stepped back from the firing line with the same casual efficiency she'd shown throughout the demonstration. The gathered crowd was silent, processing what they'd just witnessed. Acceptable? She asked Morrison, as if shooting a perfect score with one of the military's most challenging weapons was a routine occurrence. Before Morrison could answer, a familiar voice cut through the silence from behind the group of observers. "Now that," said Colonel Marcus Webb, Commandant of the Marine Corps' Precision Shooting Program, "is how you handle a rifle." Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, I want to take a moment to thank you for watching. Creating and narrating these detailed, novel-length stories takes tremendous time and research to bring you the most engaging content possible. We're embarking on a journey of nearly 50,000 words together. That's a full novella. If you're already hooked by what you've heard, please show your support by hitting that like button, sharing this story with someone who would enjoy it, and subscribing to the channel. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss our latest stories. This is going to be an epic adventure, so get comfortable. And let's continue with this remarkable tale. Colonel Webb's appearance at the firing line wasn't coincidental. The 60-year-old Marine had built his reputation on identifying exceptional talent, and Elena Vasquez represented something he'd been searching for across 3 decades of military service. As the crowd of onlookers dispersed, mumbling among themselves about what they'd witnessed, Webb approached Elena with the measured stride of a man accustomed to command. "Sergeant Vasquez," he said, extending a weathered hand. "I'm Marcus Webb. I believe we have some things to discuss." Elena shook his hand with a grip that surprised Webb with its strength. Up close, he could see the calluses on her fingers that spoke of countless hours of weapons handling, and the slight tension around her eyes that suggested someone who'd seen combat. "Colonel," she acknowledged. "I assume this has to do with Project Longshot?" Webb glanced around at the lingering Marines and instructors, then gestured toward a nearby building. "Let's take this somewhere more private." The range office was Spartanly, furnished with military efficiency metal desks, filing cabinets, and walls covered with marksmanship awards and photos of distinguished graduates. Webb closed the door and activated a white noise generator, a precaution that made Elena raise an eyebrow. "Your performance today was impressive," Webb began, settling into a chair across from Elena, "but I suspect that wasn't your best effort." Elena's stone-gray eyes studied him for a moment before she answered. The wind conditions were favorable, and the range is well maintained. I've shot in more challenging environments. I'm sure you have. Webb opened a thick file folder and spread several photographs across the desk. They showed targets shot at various ranges, some at 1,500 meters, others at distances that stretched well beyond what most would consider practical for precision shooting. Each target displayed the same characteristic: impossibly tight shot groups that defied conventional understanding of long-range accuracy. These are from your classified assessments over the past 6 months, Webb continued. Shots that our best military snipers would consider miraculous, executed with consistency that borders on the supernatural. The question is, how? Elena remained silent, her expression giving nothing away. Webb had expected this. The Pentagon special projects personnel were trained to reveal information only on a need-to-know basis. Let me share what I know, Webb said, leaning forward. Elena Vasquez, age 31, former Army Special Forces weapons specialist. 3 combat deployments in Afghanistan, 2 in Iraq. Official record shows you as a communications specialist, but the classified addendums tell a different story. Confirmed kills at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters. Psychological evaluation notes describing unusual spatial reasoning abilities and exceptional hand-eye coordination. Medical records showing physiological anomalies in visual acuity and nervous system response time. Elena's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly, but she still said nothing. Then there's the interesting part, Webb continued. After your discharge from the Army, you disappeared for 18 months. No credit card usage, no permanent address, no digital footprint whatsoever. When you resurfaced, it was as a civilian contractor working on Pentagon special projects. Projects so classified that even my security clearance only grants me limited access. Webb closed the file and studied Elena's face. The Marine Corps has been tasked with developing a new generation of precision shooting capabilities, ranges, and accuracy standards that push beyond current human limitations. The Pentagon believes you might be the key to that development. For the first time since the conversation began, Elena spoke. What exactly are you asking me to do, Colonel? Train our best snipers. Push them beyond what they thought possible. Help us understand how you achieve accuracy levels that seem to defy physics. Webb paused. And in return, we'll provide you with resources and opportunities to develop your own capabilities even further. Elena was quiet for a long moment, her eyes fixed on the photographs scattered across the desk. Webb could see her mind working, weighing options and calculating risks with the same precision she brought to her shooting. There are things about my abilities that I don't fully understand myself, she finally admitted. Things that might be difficult for traditional military personnel to accept. Such as, Elena picked up one of the photographs, a target shot at 1,800 meters, showing a group that could be covered by a quarter. When I'm shooting, especially at extreme ranges, I don't rely solely on calculated adjustments for wind, elevation, and atmospheric conditions. I can sense the path the bullet needs to take. Feel the environmental factors in ways that instruments can't measure. Webb nodded slowly. He'd read enough classified reports to know that Elena's abilities went well beyond conventional marksmanship. Training. The military has always made room for exceptional talent, Sergeant. What matters is results. And if those results come with complications? If pushing the boundaries of human performance reveals things that some people would rather keep hidden. Webb's expression grew serious. Then we deal with those complications as they arise. The world is changing, Sergeant Vasquez. Our enemies are developing capabilities that challenge everything we thought we knew about warfare. We need every advantage we can get. Elena stood and walked to the window overlooking the firing range. In the distance, she could see other shooters, working through their drills, struggling with weapons and distances, that had become effortless for her years ago. "I'll need complete autonomy in training methods," she said without turning around. "And access to specialized equipment that isn't in standard inventory." "Done. I'll also need to work with volunteers only. Soldiers who are genuinely interested in pushing their limits, not just following orders." "That might be more challenging, but I can make it happen." Elena turned back to face Webb. "Then let's see how far we can push the art of precision shooting." 2 weeks later, Elena found herself standing before a conference room full of Marines, each one representing the cream of the Corps' precision shooting program. The 12 men ranged in age from 22 to 38, with combat experience spanning multiple theaters and specialties. They'd been briefed only that they were participating in advanced marksmanship program led by a Pentagon contractor. Master Sergeant Jake Morrison was among them, along with Corporal Danny Hayes and 10 other NCOs whose records showed exceptional shooting ability. As Elena surveyed the group, she could read the skepticism in their faces. To them, she was a civilian outsider who'd somehow impressed their leadership with a lucky day at the range. "Gentlemen," Elena began, her voice carrying clearly through the room, "you've been selected for this program because your commanders believe you have the potential to exceed current human limitations in precision shooting. Over the next 6 months, we're going to test that belief." Staff Sergeant Chen, a sniper instructor with a reputation for straight talk, raised his hand. "Ma'am, with respect, what exactly are your qualifications for this program? Most of U.S. have been shooting competitively and operationally for over a decade." Elena had expected this challenge. Rather than recite her classified credentials, she picked up a marker and drew a simple diagram on the whiteboard, a trajectory curve showing the path of a bullet from muzzle to target. "Staff Sergeant Chen," she said, "what factors affect this trajectory at a range of 2,000 meters?" Chen straightened in his chair. "Wind speed and direction, atmospheric pressure, temperature, humidity, Coriolis effect, spin drift, ballistic coefficient of the projectile." "All correct," Elena interrupted. "Now how do you account for micro-variations in air density that occur in columns along the bullet's path? Thermal layers that can deflect a projectile by several inches at extreme range? The gravitational anomalies that exist in different geographic locations?" The room fell silent. These were factors that pushed beyond standard military training into the realm of theoretical ballistics. "The point isn't to test your knowledge," Elena continued. "It's to illustrate that precision shooting at the levels we're going to attempt requires understanding variables that most shooters never consider. Variables that can only be managed through enhanced sensory awareness and intuitive understanding of ballistic physics." Sergeant First Class Marcus Williams, a veteran of multiple sniper schools, leaned forward. "Ma'am, are you talking about some kind of psychic shooting? Because I've got to tell you, that sounds like bullshit." Elena finished. "I understand your skepticism, Sergeant Williams. Let me show you what I mean." She led the group outside, to a firing range configured differently than any they'd seen before. Targets were positioned at varying distances from 800 to 2,500 meters, but that wasn't the unusual part. Each target was partially obscured by obstacles, vegetation, terrain features, even artificial barriers that would require precise angular shots to engage. This range is designed to simulate real-world conditions where conventional ballistic calculations aren't sufficient, Elena explained. Success requires integrating mathematical precision with sensory awareness that most people don't know they possess. She gestured toward a rifle already positioned at the firing line. Not the Barrett .50 caliber she'd demonstrated with previously, but a custom-built precision rifle in .338 Lapua Magnum. The weapon showed clear signs of modification with an unusual stock design and electronic systems integrated into the traditional scope mounts. Before anyone shoots, we're going to spend 2 weeks developing your sensory awareness. Learning to feel atmospheric conditions, to sense microenvironmental changes, to trust perceptions that go beyond what your instruments tell you. Corporal Hayes couldn't contain his skepticism. "Ma'am, no disrespect, but this sounds like New Age. Mysticism mixed with shooting sports. We're Marines, not meditation students." Elena smiled for the first time since the session began, and something in that expression made several of the Marines shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Corporal Hayes," she said, "by the end of this program, you're going to achieve hits at ranges and under conditions that would be impossible using conventional methods. You're going to develop abilities that will fundamentally change how you understand precision shooting." She paused, her storm gray eyes meeting each man's gaze in turn. "The question is whether you're willing to abandon everything you think you know about marksmanship in order to learn what's actually possible." The silence stretched for nearly a minute before Master Sergeant Morrison spoke up. "Ma'am, I saw what you did with the Barrett 2 weeks ago. If you can teach us to shoot like that, we're willing to listen." Elena nodded. "Good, because we start tomorrow morning at 0500, and the first lesson doesn't involve touching a rifle at all." Elena's training methods proved unlike anything the Marines had experienced in decades of military service. The first week involved no actual shooting. Instead, she led them through exercises designed to heighten sensory awareness and develop what she termed environmental integration. They spent hours lying motionless in different positions, learning to feel air currents with exposed skin, to detect minute changes in atmospheric pressure, to sense the thermal layers that existed at different heights above the ground. Elena taught them breathing techniques that slowed their heart rate to nearly meditative levels, and showed them how to extend their natural point of aim through mental visualization. Precision shooting at extreme range isn't about forcing the bullet to the target, she explained during one early morning session. It's about understanding the environment so completely that you can guide the projectile along the path of least resistance. The Marines struggled with concepts that seemed more philosophical than tactical. Sergeant Williams openly complained that they were wasting time that could be spent on actual marksmanship training. Several others expressed similar doubts, but something kept them engaged: Elena's absolute confidence in her methods, and the occasional demonstration of abilities that defied conventional explanation. During one exercise, she had them close, their eyes and point toward a series of targets positioned at unknown distances and directions. While most of the Marines' estimates were wildly inaccurate, Elena consistently pointed within degrees of the actual target locations. When asked how she did it, she simply said, "You can feel the presence of objects if you know what to listen for." The second week introduced modified weapons handling that emphasized harmony between shooter and rifle rather than the traditional emphasis on controlling recoil and muzzle movement. Elena showed them grip techniques that allowed the weapon to move naturally with its recoil impulse while maintaining sight alignment, and breathing patterns that synchronized with the rifle's natural oscillations. "Every rifle has its own personality," she explained while demonstrating with the custom point .338 Lapua. Weight distribution, balance point, recoil characteristics, even the harmonic vibrations that occur when the action cycles. Learning to work with these characteristics instead of fighting them is the foundation of truly precision shooting. Master Sergeant Morrison found himself surprisingly engaged with Elena's unconventional methods. A 20-year veteran who'd considered himself an expert marksman, he discovered that Elena was teaching him to perceive aspects of shooting that he'd never consciously recognized. Small variations in wind patterns, the subtle changes in air density that occurred with temperature shifts, the way atmospheric pressure affected not just bullet trajectory, but his own physical stability. "She's teaching us to become human ballistic computers," he confided to Corporal Hayes after a particularly intensive session. "Except instead of calculating the variables, we're learning to feel them." Hayes remained skeptical, but couldn't deny the changes he was experiencing in his own shooting. During preliminary accuracy tests with standard .308 rifles at conventional ranges, his groups were tightening noticeably. More importantly, he was beginning to sense when a shot would be off target before the bullet even left the barrel. "It's like she's rewiring our nervous systems," he admitted to Staff Sergeant Chen. "I'm picking up on things that I never noticed before, micro-movements in my rifle, tiny changes in wind direction, even the way my heartbeat affects my sight picture." Chen nodded thoughtfully. He'd been one of Elena's more receptive students, possibly because his competitive shooting background had already taught him to pay attention to subtle environmental factors. "What bothers me is how naturally this stuff comes to her. It's like she's operating with senses that the rest of us don't have." The conversation was interrupted by Elena's approach. She developed an uncanny ability to appear at exactly the right moment, as if she could sense when her students were discussing the program. "Gentlemen," she said, "are you ready to see what you've been training for?" She led them to the complex range she'd shown them on the first day, where targets waited at distances ranging from reasonable to seemingly impossible. The custom .338 Lapua rifle rested on its bipod at the firing line, along with several other precision weapons they'd been working with over the past 2 weeks. "Staff Sergeant Chen," Elena said, "you're going to take the first shot. Target at 1,200 meters, partial concealment behind the rocky outcrop." Chen settled behind the rifle, applying the techniques Elena had been teaching them. Instead of immediately looking through the scope, he spent several minutes reading the environment, feeling the wind patterns, sensing the thermal layers. Allowing his body to synchronize with the rifle's natural balance point. When he finally acquired the target through the scope, something felt different. The sight picture seemed clearer, more stable than he'd ever experienced. His crosshairs settled naturally on the target's center, and for the first time in his shooting career, Chen felt absolutely certain that the shot would be perfect before he broke the trigger. The rifle's report echoed across the range. Through his binoculars, Morrison could see the impact, a clean hit in the target's X-ring, achieved under conditions that would have challenged his best previous efforts. "Outstanding," Elena said, but her tone suggested this was exactly what she'd expected. "Sergeant Williams, you're next. Target at 1,500 meters, crosswind conditions." One by one, the Marines worked through increasingly challenging shots. Each man found himself achieving accuracy levels that exceeded his previous best performances, guided by the sensory awareness and shooting techniques Elena had been developing. Over the past 2 weeks, Corporal Hayes was the last to shoot, and Elena had reserved the most challenging target for him, a silhouette at 1,800 meters, partially obscured by heat shimmer rising from the sun-warmed ground below. "Remember," Elena said as Hayes settled into position, "don't fight the environmental conditions. Use them. The heat shimmer creates thermal layers that can actually stabilize your bullet's flight path if you time the shot correctly." Hayes had never attempted a shot at this distance under these conditions, but as he settled behind the rifle, he found himself applying everything Elena had taught them. He could feel the thermal currents rising from the heated ground, sense the micro-variations in wind that would affect the bullet's path, even detect the slight atmospheric pressure changes caused by cloud shadows passing overhead. When his crosshairs settled on the target, Hayes experienced the same certainty that Chen had described. The shot felt perfect before the trigger broke, and the distant target confirmed what his enhanced senses had already told him. A clean X-ring hit at a range he'd never before considered achievable. As the Marines gathered around Elena to discuss what they'd experienced, Master Sergeant Morrison realized that something fundamental had changed in their understanding of precision shooting. They were no longer simply highly trained marksmen using advanced equipment. They had become something new, shooters whose abilities pushed beyond the conventional boundaries of human performance. "This is just the beginning," Elena told them as they prepared to leave the range. "What you've accomplished today would have been impossible 2 weeks ago. Over the next 4 months, we're going to push even further beyond those limitations." As the group walked back toward the base facilities, none of them noticed the figure watching from a distant hill through high-powered binoculars. Colonel Marcus Webb had observed the entire session, and what he'd witnessed confirmed both his highest hopes and his deepest concerns about Elena Vasquez's capabilities. The woman wasn't just an exceptional marksman. She was teaching ordinary Marines to achieve superhuman levels of precision, and Webb wasn't certain that the military establishment was prepared for the implications of that development. That evening, Webb made a secure phone call to the Pentagon, speaking with individuals whose names appeared on no organizational charts and whose responsibilities were defined only in the most classified documents. "The Vasquez program is exceeding our most optimistic projections," he reported. "She's not just demonstrating enhanced abilities, she's successfully transferring those abilities to conventional personnel." The voice on the other end of the line was carefully neutral. "Any indication of how she's achieving these results?" "Nothing that fits conventional training models. Her methods involve sensory development and environmental awareness that goes well beyond standard marksmanship instruction. The results speak for themselves, but the underlying mechanisms—" Webb paused, choosing his words carefully. "There may be factors involved that weren't disclosed in her initial assessment." "Understood. Continue the program as planned, but implement enhanced monitoring protocols. We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with." Webb acknowledged the order and ended the call, but his concerns were far from resolved. Elena Vasquez was creating capabilities that could revolutionize military precision shooting, but she was also raising questions about human potential that some people would find deeply disturbing. Outside his office window, Webb could see lights still burning in the quarters where Elena was housed. He wondered what she was thinking as she prepared for the next phase of training, and whether she understood the broader implications of what she was teaching. More importantly, he wondered whether the military establishment was ready to accept the existence of human abilities that challenged fundamental assumptions about the limits of human performance. The third week of Elena's program began with an unexpected visitor. Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to Staff Sergeant Tom Chen, arrived at Quantico with credentials that made even Colonel Webb snap to attention. As the Pentagon's chief researcher for human performance enhancement, Dr. Chen's presence meant that Elena's program had attracted attention at the highest levels of military science. Elena was conducting her morning briefing when Webb interrupted. To introduce the newcomer, Dr. Chen was a small, intense woman in her early 40s, with the kind of sharp intelligence that made people instinctively cautious about what they revealed in her presence. "Sergeant Vasquez," Dr. Chen said, extending a hand, "I've been following your work with great interest. The reports from your first 2 weeks here have raised some fascinating questions about the nature of enhanced human performance." Elena accepted the handshake warily. She'd dealt with military researchers before, and they typically viewed exceptional abilities as problems to be solved rather than gifts to be developed. "Doctor," Elena replied carefully, "I wasn't aware that this program was being monitored at that level." "Oh, it's being monitored at levels you can't imagine," Dr. Chen said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "The Pentagon has several ongoing projects related to human enhancement, and your methods appear to intersect with some very sensitive research areas." Webb interceded before Elena could respond. "Dr. Chen will be observing your training sessions for the next few days. She's here to understand your techniques, not to interfere with them." Elena nodded, but her expression had grown guarded. The presence of a researcher changed the dynamic of the program in ways that could complicate everything she was trying to accomplish. "Gentlemen," she said to the assembled Marines, "we're going to continue with today's planned progression. Advanced Environmental integration at extended ranges. She led the group to a different section of the complex, where targets had been positioned at distances exceeding 2,000 meters. The terrain between firing positions and targets included obstacles, elevation changes, and atmospheric conditions that would challenge even the most sophisticated ballistic computers. Today we're working on shots that require intuitive understanding of ballistic physics, Elena explained, ignoring Dr. Chen's presence as much as possible. These are engagements where mathematical calculations become secondary to environmental awareness and spatial reasoning. Dr. Chen produced a tablet and began taking notes, occasionally asking questions about specific techniques or requesting clarification of Elena's terminology. Her presence created an undercurrent of tension that the Marines clearly sensed, even if they didn't understand its source. Master Sergeant Morrison was the first to attempt the challenging shots. As he settled behind the custom point .338 Lapua rifle, Elena guided him through the sensory awareness techniques they'd been developing. Feel the wind patterns at different altitudes, she instructed. The bullet will encounter varying air densities as it travels through the different thermal layers. Trust your senses to guide the trajectory adjustment. Morrison applied the techniques Elena had taught them, extending his awareness beyond the immediate firing position to encompass the entire path between muzzle and target. As his crosshairs settled on the distant silhouette, he experienced the same certainty that had characterized his shooting over the past. Weak absolute knowledge that the shot would be perfect. The rifle's report echoed across the complex. Terrain. Through spotting scopes, the observers could see the impact, a clean hit at a range where most military snipers would consider themselves fortunate to achieve minute-of-target accuracy. Dr. Chen looked up from her tablet, clearly impressed. Despite her professional skepticism, Sergeant Morrison, can you describe what you experienced during that shot? Specifically, how did you determine the trajectory adjustments? Morrison glanced at Elena before answering. Ma'am, it's difficult to explain in conventional terms. I could sense the environmental conditions along the bullet's path, almost like feeling the air currents with my skin. The adjustments felt intuitive, I guess, like the rifle was pointing itself at the target. Dr. Chen made several notes, then looked at Elena with renewed interest. Sergeant Vasquez, these results suggest enhanced proprioceptive awareness and possibly accelerated sensory processing. Have you undergone any medical testing to quantify these abilities? Elena's jaw tightened. My medical records are classified at levels that I believe exceed your clearance, Doctor. Perhaps, Dr. Chen said smoothly. But I have authorization to conduct field assessments of program participants. Would you be willing to demonstrate your own capabilities under controlled conditions? Before Elena could answer, Colonel Webb stepped forward. Dr. Chen, Sergeant Vasquez's demonstrations aren't part of your observation protocol. You're here to evaluate training methods, not individual performance. Dr. Chen smiled again, and Elena realized that the researcher was far more dangerous than she'd initially appeared. Of course, Colonel. Though I should mention that the Pentagon's interest in this program extends beyond simple marksmanship training. Enhanced human performance has implications that reach into several classified research areas. The remainder of the day's training proceeded under Dr. Chen's watchful observation. Each Marine achieved accuracy levels that would have been impossible weeks earlier, guided by the sensory awareness and environmental integration techniques Elena had been developing. But Dr. Chen's presence cast a shadow over their accomplishments, transforming scientific achievement into potential security concerns. That evening, Elena found herself summoned to a private meeting with Webb and Dr. Chen. The setting was Webb's office, but the atmosphere felt more like an interrogation than a professional consultation. Sergeant Vasquez, Dr. Chen began, your training methods are producing results that challenge our understanding of human performance limitations. The Marines in your program are achieving accuracy levels that should be impossible given their baseline abilities, and the time frame of your instruction. Elena remained silent, recognizing that anything she said would be analyzed for implications beyond her immediate meaning. Dr. Chen continued. More importantly, they're describing sensory experiences and awareness capabilities that don't align with conventional neurological function. Enhanced environmental perception, intuitive ballistic calculations, even precognitive certainty about shot placement. These are symptoms of neurological enhancement that we've only seen in subjects who've undergone very specific modifications. The word hung in the air like a threat. Elena finally spoke, her voice carefully controlled. Doctor, I'm teaching conventional marksmanship techniques enhanced by improved sensory awareness. Nothing more than that, really? Dr. Chen opened her tablet and displayed a series of photographs. These are brain scans from the Pentagon's human enhancement programs. Notice the increased activity in the parietal and temporal lobes, particularly in areas associated with spatial reasoning and sensory integration. She swiped to another image. This is a scan we took of Staff Sergeant Chen yesterday after just 2 weeks in your program. The neurological changes are subtle but unmistakable. His brain is processing sensory information in ways that didn't exist before your training. Elena studied the brain scans with growing alarm. She'd suspected that her abilities might be transferring to her students in ways that went beyond conventional training. But seeing the neurological evidence was disturbing. Doctor, Colonel Webb interjected, what exactly are you suggesting? Dr. Chen closed the tablet and fixed Elena with a stare that seemed to see straight through her professional composure. I'm suggesting that Sergeant Vasquez possesses abilities that go well beyond exceptional marksmanship. Abilities that she's somehow transferring to her students through methods that we don't understand. The question is whether those abilities are natural or artificial in origin. Elena realized that her carefully constructed cover story was beginning to unravel. Dr. Chen clearly knew more about human enhancement programs than she was admitting, and her questions were probing areas that Elena couldn't discuss without revealing classified information that went to the heart of her true identity. I think this meeting is over, Elena said, standing abruptly. If you have concerns about my training methods, you can address them through proper channels. Dr. Chen smiled one more time, and Elena realized that the researcher had gotten exactly what she'd come for: confirmation that Elena Vasquez was far more than a gifted marksmanship instructor. Of course, Sergeant. Though I should mention that I'll be extending my observation period indefinitely. The Pentagon has decided that your program requires comprehensive evaluation before it can be expanded to other units. As Elena left Webb's office, she understood that her situation had become infinitely more complicated. Dr. Chen's arrival meant that her abilities had attracted attention from researchers who specialized in human enhancement. People who would recognize the true nature of her capabilities and the potential implications of transferring them to others. The following morning brought new complications in the form of an unscheduled visit from General Patricia Hawkins, the Marine Corps' Deputy Commandant for Combat Development. Her arrival, accompanied by a small entourage of staff officers, created a stir of activity that reached Elena long before the official notification. Elena was conducting individual coaching sessions with her Marines when Colonel Webb appeared with the General in tow. General Hawkins was a compact woman in her mid-50s, with gray hair and the kind of direct gaze that suggested she hadn't climbed to her current rank by accepting convenient explanations. Sergeant Vasquez, Webb said, his tone formal in the presence of senior leadership. General Hawkins would like to observe your training methods firsthand. Elena came to attention, but General Hawkins waved off the formality. At ease, Sergeant. I'm here because the reports I've been receiving about your program sound too good to be true. In my experience, when something sounds impossible, it usually is. Dr. Chen materialized beside the general, tablet in hand. Elena realized that the researcher had orchestrated this visit, probably as a way to apply additional pressure to her investigation. "General," Elena said carefully, "what you're seeing here is the result of intensive training in advanced marksmanship techniques. Nothing more than maximizing human potential through proper instruction." General Hawkins studied Elena with the same intensity she'd probably used to evaluate enemy positions during her own combat deployments. "Show me," she said simply. Elena led the group to the firing line where Corporal Hayes was preparing for a challenging engagement at 2,200 meters. The target was positioned beyond a series of terrain features that created complex wind patterns and thermal layers, conditions that would test every aspect of the sensory awareness techniques Elena had been teaching. "Corporal Hayes," Elena said, "demonstrate the environmental integration sequence." Hayes settled behind the rifle, applying the techniques that had become second nature over the past 3 weeks. He closed his eyes and extended his sensory awareness, feeling the wind patterns at different altitudes, sensing the thermal currents rising from the sun-warmed ground, detecting the minute atmospheric pressure changes that would affect his bullets. Trajectory. General Hawkins watched with growing amazement as Hayes described environmental conditions that weren't visible through conventional observation. He spoke about wind shears at specific altitudes, temperature inversions that would create ballistic deflection, even the gravitational variations caused by local terrain density. How can he possibly know all that? General Hawkins whispered to Dr. Chen. "That's exactly what we're trying to understand," Dr. Chen replied. Making notes on her tablet. Hayes opened his eyes and settled behind the scope, his movements flowing with the mechanical precision that characterized all of Elena's students. His crosshairs found the distant target, and Elena could see the familiar certainty settle over his features, the absolute knowledge that the shot would be perfect. The rifle's report echoed across the range. Through spotting scopes, the observers confirmed another X-ring hit at a distance where conventional military training would consider any hit on target to be exceptional. General Hawkins lowered her binoculars and turned to Elena with an expression that mixed admiration with deep concern. "Sergeant, I've been around military marksmanship for 30 years. What I just witnessed goes beyond anything I've seen from our best snipers." "The techniques are unconventional," Elena admitted, "but the results speak for themselves." "The results are exactly what concern me," General Hawkins said. "Dr. Chen has briefed me on some of the neurological changes she's observed in your students. Changes that suggest their brains are processing information in ways that weren't possible before. Your training." Elena felt the walls closing in around her. The general's visit, combined with Dr. Chen's investigation, was forcing her toward revelations that could compromise not just her cover story, but the broader classified programs that had shaped her abilities. "General," she said, "I'm not sure what Dr. Chen has told you, but my training methods are based on conventional marksmanship principles enhanced by improved sensory awareness. There's nothing mysterious or artificial about what these Marines are learning." Dr. Chen stepped forward, her tablet displaying new information. "General, if I may, the brain scans we've conducted show clear evidence of enhanced neural connectivity in areas associated with spatial reasoning and sensory integration. These are changes that typically require pharmaceutical or technological intervention to achieve." General Hawkins studied the tablet display, her expression growing more troubled. "Are you suggesting that Sergeant Vasquez is using unauthorized enhancement methods on my Marines?" "I'm suggesting that the capability she's demonstrating and teaching may not be entirely natural in origin," Dr. Chen replied. "The Pentagon has several ongoing programs related to human enhancement, and the results we're seeing here show remarkable similarities to some very classified research." Elena realized that Dr. Chen was maneuvering her into a position where she'd be forced to either reveal classified information or accept accusations of unauthorized human experimentation. Either option would destroy the program and potentially compromise her own mission. General, Elena said, I think there may be some misunderstanding about the nature of my background and capabilities. Perhaps we could discuss this in a more appropriate setting? General Hawkins nodded slowly. I think that's an excellent idea, Sergeant. Colonel Webb, arrange for a comprehensive briefing this afternoon. I want to understand exactly what we're dealing with here. As the group prepared to leave the firing range, Elena caught Master Sergeant Morrison's eye. The veteran NCO had been observing the exchange with growing concern, clearly sensing that his instructor was facing challenges that went beyond normal military bureaucracy. Ma'am, Morrison said quietly, whatever's going on here, the Marines in this program trust you. You've given us capabilities we never thought possible. That means something. Elena nodded gratefully, but she knew that Morrison's loyalty, however genuine, wouldn't be enough to protect her from the investigation that was clearly building momentum. Dr. Chen had identified her as something more than a gifted marksmanship instructor, and General Hawkins represented the kind of senior leadership that could either protect her program or destroy it completely. That afternoon's briefing would determine which direction her situation would take. The conference room was configured for a classified briefing, with electronic countermeasures active and guards posted outside. General Hawkins sat at the head of the table, flanked by Colonel Webb and Dr. Chen. Elena occupied the chair directly across from them, feeling very much like a defendant facing a military tribunal. Sergeant Vasquez, General Hawkins began, before we continue, I want to make clear that this conversation is being conducted under the provisions of several classified programs. What we discuss here cannot leave this room without proper authorization. Elena nodded, understanding that the general was providing her with legal protection while also warning her that any false statements could result in serious consequences. Now, General Hawkins continued, Dr. Chen has raised concerns about the nature of your abilities and the methods you're using to train my Marines. I need to understand whether those concerns are justified. Elena had spent the previous hours considering her options, and she'd reached the conclusion that partial honesty might be her best strategy. General, my background includes participation in classified research programs that enhance certain aspects of my cognitive and sensory capabilities. Those enhancements form the basis of my training methods. Dr. Chen leaned forward, her interest clearly piqued. Which program specifically? That information is classified above your clearance level, Doctor. General Hawkins held up a hand before Dr. Chen could respond. Sergeant, are you telling me that you're the product of some kind of human enhancement program? Yes, ma'am. Experimental neurological modifications designed to enhance spatial reasoning, sensory integration, and hand-eye coordination. The modifications were voluntary and conducted under Pentagon oversight. Dr. Chen was taking notes furiously. When did these modifications occur, and are they reversible? Elena hesitated. The truth was that she wasn't entirely certain about the nature of her own enhancements, or whether they could be undone. The procedures occurred approximately 3 years ago. As for reversibility, that information wasn't part of my briefing. Materials. General Hawkins studied Elena with renewed intensity. And now you're transferring these enhanced abilities to my Marines. How is that possible? The training methods I've developed help students access cognitive and sensory capabilities that most people possess, but never learn to utilize. The enhancements I received allow me to demonstrate these techniques more effectively, but the underlying abilities are natural human potential. It was a careful half-truth. Elena's abilities did seem to awaken latent capabilities in her students, but the mechanism by which this occurred remained a mystery even to her. Dr. Chen looked up from her tablet. General, this raises serious questions about informed consent. If these Marines are undergoing neurological changes as a result of their training, They should be made aware of the potential risks and long-term consequences. Elena felt a surge of anger. Doctor, these Marines are achieving capabilities that could save their lives and the lives of their fellow service members. The risks you're worried about involve becoming better soldiers. The risks I'm worried about, Dr. Chen shot back, involve unknown neurological modifications that could have unpredictable long-term effects. We don't know what happens to enhanced individuals over time, or whether these changes can be passed on to future generations. The room fell silent as the implications of Dr. Chen's statement sank in. Elena realized that the researcher was raising questions that she herself had never fully considered. Her own enhancements were too recent for long-term effects to be apparent, and she'd never contemplated the possibility that they might be heritable. General Hawkins broke the silence. Sergeant, I need to ask you directly, do you believe there are any risks associated with your training methods that my Marines should be aware of? Elena considered the question carefully. General, any training that pushes human performance beyond conventional limits involves some degree of risk. But I believe the benefits far outweigh any potential concerns. That's not what I asked, General Hawkins said firmly. I asked whether there are specific risks that my Marines should know about. Elena met the general's gaze directly. I don't have enough information about the long-term effects of enhanced capabilities to provide a complete risk assessment. But I can tell you that the Marines in this program are developing abilities that will make them more effective in combat situations. Dr. Chen made another note, then looked up with an expression that suggested she'd reached some kind of conclusion. General, I recommend that we suspend this program pending a comprehensive medical evaluation of all participants. The neurological changes we've documented need to be fully understood before we continue. Elena felt her carefully constructed program beginning to collapse around her. General, these Marines have volunteered for advanced training, and they're achieving exceptional results. Suspending the program now would waste months of progress and deny them capabilities that could save lives. General Hawkins was quiet for a long moment, clearly weighing options that had implications far beyond the immediate program. Finally, she spoke. Sergeant Vasquez, I'm not prepared to suspend the program at this time, but I am ordering some modifications to your training protocol. First, all participants will undergo comprehensive medical monitoring. Second, Dr. Chen will continue her observation and assessment activities. Third, no new students will be added to the program until we have a better understanding of the long-term implications. Elena nodded, recognizing that she'd achieved the best outcome she could have hoped for under the circumstances. The program would continue, but under much closer scrutiny than before. There's one more thing, General Hawkins added. I'm authorizing Dr. Chen to conduct a comprehensive evaluation of your own capabilities and enhancement history. The Marine Corps needs to understand exactly what we're dealing with before we make decisions about expanding this program. Elena felt a chill of apprehension. Dr. Chen's evaluation would inevitably probe areas that touched on the most classified aspects of her background, areas that even Elena herself didn't fully understand. When would this evaluation begin? Elena asked. Dr. Chen smiled with obvious satisfaction. Tomorrow morning, Sergeant. I've already arranged for the necessary equipment and personnel. As the meeting concluded and the participants prepared to leave, Elena realized that her situation had become exponentially more complicated. Dr. Chen's investigation would force her to reveal information that could compromise not just her own mission but the broader programs that had created her abilities. More troubling still, she was beginning to understand that her enhancements might have implications that even their creators hadn't fully anticipated. Implications that could affect not just her students, but potentially future generations. Dr. Chen's evaluation began at 0600 the following morning in a medical facility that had been hastily converted into a comprehensive testing laboratory. Elena found herself surrounded by equipment that looked more suited to a hospital intensive care unit than a military base brain scanners, neurological monitoring devices, and computer systems that hummed with the kind of processing power typically reserved for classified research. "Sergeant Vasquez," Dr. Chen said, gesturing toward a chair surrounded by sensors. "We're going to start with baseline neurological mapping. I need to understand the extent of your enhancements before we can assess their implications." Elena settled into the chair, acutely aware that the next few hours could determine not just her future, but the fate of her entire program. The sensors attached to her head and arms felt cold against her skin, and the monitoring equipment began displaying readouts that Dr. Chen studied with obvious fascination. "Interesting," Dr. Chen murmured, adjusting several controls. "Your brain activity shows patterns I've only seen in subjects who've undergone very specific enhancement procedures. Enhanced connectivity between the parietal and temporal lobes, accelerated processing in areas associated with spatial reasoning, even increased activity in regions that most people never fully utilize." Elena remained silent, knowing that any response could provide information that Dr. Chen might use against the program. "Now," Dr. Chen continued, "I want you to perform some simple spatial reasoning tasks while we monitor your neurological responses." The tests began with basic exercise, identifying patterns, calculating angles, estimating distances. But as they progressed, Elena realized that Dr. Chen was probing abilities that went well beyond conventional cognitive assessment. The researcher was testing for capabilities that suggested enhanced sensory perception and intuitive understanding of physical relationships. "Remarkable," Dr. Chen said as she reviewed the results. "Your brain is processing spatial information approximately 30% faster than baseline human capability, and with accuracy levels that approach theoretical maximums. These are modifications that our own enhancement programs have been trying to achieve for years." Elena felt a growing sense of unease. Dr. Chen's questions were becoming increasingly specific, probing areas that suggested knowledge of classified research programs that Elena herself had only limited awareness of. "Doctor," Elena said, "what exactly do you know about enhancement programs? Your question suggests familiarity with research that I thought was highly compartmentalized." Dr. Chen smiled, and Elena realized that the researcher had been waiting for exactly this question. "Sergeant, I've been involved in human enhancement research for over a decade. I'm familiar with most of the Pentagon's programs in this area, including some that you probably aren't aware of." She activated a secure display that showed a complex organizational chart mapping various classified research initiatives. Elena recognized some of the program names, but others were completely unfamiliar. "The program that enhanced your capabilities," Dr. Chen continued, "is part of a broader initiative aimed at creating super soldiers with capabilities that go well beyond conventional human limitations. What concerns me is that your abilities seem to exceed even our most optimistic projections for enhancement technology." Elena studied the organizational chart, beginning to understand that her own modifications were part of a research effort, much larger and more complex than she'd realized. "What are you suggesting, Doctor?" "I'm suggesting that your enhancements may not be entirely technological in origin. The neurological patterns we're seeing indicate capabilities that push beyond what current enhancement methods can achieve." Dr. Chen activated another display showing brain scans from various subjects. "These are results from our most advanced enhancement programs. Notice the increased neural connectivity and accelerated processing speeds. Now compare them to your scans." Elena studied the images, seeing clear differences between her neurological patterns and those of other enhanced subjects. Her brain activity showed levels of integration and processing speed that exceeded even the most successful enhancement results. "The differences are significant," Dr. Chen continued. "Your enhancements appear to include elements that we don't fully understand modifications that may not be entirely human in origin. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Elena felt her carefully maintained composure beginning to crack as the implications of Dr. Chen's statement became clear. "Doctor, what exactly are you accusing me of?" "I'm not accusing you of anything, Sergeant. I'm trying to understand what you are." Before Elena could respond, an alarm began sounding throughout the facility. Emergency lights bathed the laboratory in red illumination, and Elena could hear the sound of vehicles approaching at high speed. Dr. Chen grabbed a radio and spoke quickly into it, her voice tense with urgency. "What's the situation?" "Unknown aircraft approaching the facility," came the response. "Multiple contacts, military configuration, not responding to radio calls." Elena stood from the chair, automatically removing the monitoring sensors. Through the laboratory's windows, she could see aircraft in the distance, helicopters flying information toward the base. "Those aren't military aircraft," Elena said, her enhanced senses detecting details that others might miss. "The rotor signatures are wrong, and they're approaching from vectors that wouldn't be used by authorized flights." Dr. Chen looked at her sharply. "How can you possibly know that?" Elena was already moving toward the door, her mind racing through tactical assessments and potential responses. "Because I can hear the difference in their engine configurations, and I can sense that they're carrying more weight than standard military helicopters. They're loaded for combat." The implications of the approaching aircraft were becoming clear to Elena with terrifying certainty. Someone had discovered her location and was coming to either retrieve her or eliminate her, and they weren't concerned about maintaining the secrecy of the operation. "Doctor," Elena said, "we need to evacuate this facility immediately. Those aircraft represent a direct threat to everyone here." Dr. Chen hesitated, clearly torn between her scientific curiosity and the growing evidence that her evaluation session had been interrupted by something far more dangerous than a routine security alert. "Sergeant," she said, "if you know something about this situation that I don't—" Elena cut her off with a gesture toward the windows, where the approaching aircraft were now clearly visible. They were black helicopters with no identifying markings, flying in a tactical formation that suggested military training and hostile intent. "What I know," Elena said, "is that these aircraft are here because of me. And if we don't get your research data and equipment evacuated in the next few minutes, everyone associated with this program is going to be in serious danger." The sound of the helicopters was growing louder, and Elena could see Marines scrambling to defensive positions around the facility. But she knew that conventional military response wouldn't be adequate against whoever was approaching. These were people who understood her capabilities and had come prepared to counter them. Dr. Chen began frantically securing her research data, copying files to portable storage devices while maintaining a constant stream of radio communication with base security forces. Elena moved to the window and studied the approaching aircraft with enhanced senses that allowed her to detect details invisible to normal observation. 6 helicopters, she reported. Approximately 40 personnel, armed with advanced weapons systems. They'll be on the ground in less than 3 minutes. "How can you possibly?" Dr. Chen began, then stopped herself. "Never mind, what do we do?" Elena was already formulating a response plan that drew on tactical training that went well beyond her official military background. "We evacuate all non-essential personnel, secure the research data, and prepare for a hostile contact that's designed specifically to counter enhanced capabilities." As she spoke, Elena realized that her cover story was about to be completely blown. The approaching aircraft represented forces that knew exactly what she was and were prepared to deal with her accordingly. The question was whether she could protect the Marines in her program and Dr. Chen's research while maintaining enough operational security to avoid compromising broader classified programs. The sound of the helicopters was now overwhelming, and Elena could see Marines taking defensive positions that would be inadequate against the kind of opposition that was approaching. She made a decision that would change everything about her situation at Quantico. "Doctor," she said, "what I'm about to show you is classified beyond anything you've seen before. But if we're going to survive the next hour, you need to understand what you're really dealing with." Elena moved to the equipment locker where her personal gear was stored and began retrieving items that no conventional marksmanship instructor would possess: weapons, communication devices, and tactical equipment that suggested capabilities far beyond anything in her official records. Dr. Chen watched with growing amazement as Elena transformed from a seemingly normal instructor into something that resembled a one-person special operations unit. "Sergeant," Dr. Chen said, "who are you really?" Elena checked the action on a weapon that Dr. Chen didn't recognize, her movements flowing with mechanical precision that suggested intimate familiarity with equipment designed for the most demanding combat situations. "That's a very complicated question, Doctor. But right now, the important thing is that I'm the person standing between you and some very dangerous people who want to make sure that your research never sees the light of day." The first helicopter was touching down outside the facility, and Elena could see armed figures moving with the kind of tactical precision that meant they were prepared for exactly this kind of operation. "Stay close to me," Elena told Dr. Chen, "and whatever happens in the next few minutes, remember that everything you've observed about enhanced human capabilities is just the beginning of what's actually possible. We're deep into this incredible story now, and I hope you're as captivated as I am by these unfolding events. The amount of effort that goes into researching, writing, and narrating these novel-length stories is immense. We're talking about creating content equivalent to a published book. But it's worth it to bring you stories that truly engage and transport you to another world. If you're enjoying this journey so far, please take a second to like this video and share it with friends who appreciate great storytelling. Your support means everything and helps us continue creating these detailed, epic narratives. We still have so much more to discover together. So let's see how this situation unfolds. Elena S transformation from instructor to operator took less than 30 seconds. But Dr. Chen felt like she was watching someone shed an entirely false identity. The woman who emerged from the equipment locker moved with lethal grace, checking weapons and communication devices with the efficiency of someone who'd done this countless times under extreme pressure. "Base security, this is Vasquez," Elena spoke into a communication device that definitely wasn't standard Marine Corps equipment. "Unknown hostiles on the ground. Approximately 40 personnel with advanced tactical gear. Initiate lockdown protocols for Building 7 and evacuate all non-essential personnel from the testing facility." Dr. Chen could hear confused responses from the base security forces, who clearly weren't prepared for this kind of situation. Through the window, she could see the black helicopters disgorging armed figures who moved with military precision toward the facility. "Doctor," Elena said, "I need you to understand something. The people approaching this building aren't interested in capturing me alive. They're here to eliminate a security risk, and that includes anyone who might have learned too much about enhanced human capabilities." Elena moved to the window and observed the approaching forces with senses that allowed her to gather information impossible for normal human perception. 36 personnel divided into 6 tactical teams. Advanced body armor, suppressed weapons, communication equipment that suggests coordination with outside command authority. They're moving like people who've done this before. Dr. Chen was frantically copying the last of her research data to portable storage devices. "Sergeant, if these people are willing to attack a Marine Corps facility, they must represent some kind of rogue operation. We need to contact higher authority, Doctor." Elena interrupted. "Higher authority may be exactly who sent them. The implication hit Dr. Chen like a physical blow. If Elena was right, then the research programs she'd been investigating were connected to forces within the military, establishment that were willing to use extreme measures to protect their secrets. Elena was assembling equipment with mechanical efficiency weapons that Dr. Chen didn't recognize, communication devices that looked more advanced than anything in the standard military inventory, and what appeared to be some kind of electronic countermeasures. "System, Sergeant," Dr. Chen said, "what exactly are you?" Elena paused in her preparations and looked at Dr. Chen with an expression that seemed infinitely older than her apparent age. "I'm what happens when enhancement technology is pushed beyond the boundaries that conventional science considers safe or ethical. And right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and people who will kill to keep that information secret." The sound of breaching charges echoed from the building's lower levels, followed by the staccato reports of suppressed gunfire. Elena's enhanced hearing allowed her to track the tactical team's progress through the facility, and what she heard wasn't encouraging. "They're moving faster than base security can respond," Elena reported. "Professional breach and clear techniques. Coordinated team movement, minimal communication chatter. These are operators who've been specifically briefed on the facility layout and are likely defensive responses." Dr. Chen finished securing her research data and looked around the laboratory with the expression of someone watching her life's work being threatened by forces beyond her control. "How do we get out of here?" Elena moved to a wall panel that Dr. Chen hadn't noticed before and activated what appeared to be a concealed interface. The panel slid aside, revealing a passage that definitely wasn't part of the facility's standard architecture. "Emergency egress route," Elena explained. "Installed as part of the security modifications when this program began. It leads to a concealed exit approximately 200 meters from the building." Dr. Chen stared at the hidden passage with growing amazement. "How did you know about this?" "Because I requested it," Elena said, gathering the last of her equipment. "When you're carrying the kind of secrets I am, you learn to plan for situations exactly like this one." The sound of tactical teams ascending the building's stairwells was growing closer. Elena could hear their coordinated movement and radio chatter, and she knew they had minutes at most before the laboratory would be breached. "Doctor, we need to move now. Bring only the essential data. Anything we can't carry will have to be destroyed." Dr. Chen grabbed her portable storage devices and followed Elena into the concealed passage. Behind them, Elena activated some kind of security protocol that filled the laboratory with a fine mist presumably designed to destroy any sensitive materials that might fall into hostile hands. The passage was narrow and utilitarian, clearly designed for emergency use rather than comfort. Elena moved through it with the confidence of someone who'd memorized every detail, while Dr. Chen struggled to keep up in the dim emergency lighting. "Sergeant," Dr. Chen said as they moved through the passage, "I need to understand what's really happening here. Are you telling me that elements within our own military are willing to kill to protect human enhancement research?" Elena's response came over her shoulder as she navigated the passage. "Doctor, what I'm telling you is that enhanced human capabilities represent a paradigm shift that some people find profoundly threatening. When the stakes are that high, conventional ethical boundaries become negotiable." They reached a junction where the passage branched in two directions. Elena paused and activated a small device that appeared to scan for electronic signatures. "Clear," she announced. "No surveillance devices or tracking equipment in the immediate area." As they continued through the passage, Dr. Chen found herself reassessing everything she thought she knew about Elena and the research program she'd been investigating. The woman moving ahead of her displayed capabilities that went far beyond enhanced marksmanship, tactical awareness, weapons proficiency, and operational planning that suggested training at levels that officially didn't exist. "Elena," Dr. Chen said, using her first name for the first time, "who enhanced you? And what did they really do? Elena stopped at what appeared to be the passage's exit, a concealed panel that would emerge somewhere outside the main facility. Before opening it, she turned to face Dr. Chen directly. The truth is, Doctor, I'm not entirely certain. The enhancement process involved procedures that were beyond my understanding, conducted by researchers who told me only what they considered necessary for mission success. What I do know is that the results exceeded everyone's expectations, including my own. Elena activated the exit panel and peered out carefully before signaling for Dr. Chen to follow. They emerged into a wooded area approximately 200 meters from the facility, concealed from observation by carefully positioned vegetation. From their hiding position, they could see the facility swarming with black-clad tactical teams. The professional efficiency of their operation was chilling. These weren't improvised attackers, but a coordinated force that had planned this assault in detail. "My God," Dr. Chen whispered, "they're actually attacking a Marine Corps facility." Elena was monitoring radio communications through her advanced equipment, listening to traffic that revealed the scope of the operation. "It's bigger than just this facility, Doctor. They're conducting simultaneous operations at multiple locations associated with enhancement research. Someone has decided to terminate several programs at once." Dr. Chen felt the blood drain from her face as the implications became clear. If they're willing to go this far, then the research we've been conducting must represent something much more significant than improved military capabilities. Elena nodded grimly. Enhanced human performance isn't just about creating better soldiers, Doctor. It's about the next stage of human evolution, and there are people who will kill to control that process. As they watched the facility, Elena's enhanced senses detected something that made her stiffen with alarm. "Doctor, we need to move, now." "What is it?" "They've discovered our escape route. Tracking teams are moving toward this position." Elena led Dr. Chen deeper into the wooded area, moving with the kind of tactical awareness that suggested extensive training in evasion and escape. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of pursuit-coordinated search teams moving through the forest, with equipment designed to track human movement. "Where are we going?" Dr. Chen asked as they moved through the underbrush. "Somewhere we can regroup and figure out our next move," Elena replied. "Because this operation isn't just about eliminating me, Doctor. It's about controlling the future of human enhancement research. And right now, you're carrying data that some very dangerous people consider a threat to national security." As they moved through the forest, Dr. Chen realized that her scientific investigation of Elena's capabilities had thrust her into the center of a conflict that went far beyond academic research. The data she carried represented knowledge that could revolutionize human potential or destroy it, depending on who controlled its application. Elena was navigating through the forest with preternatural skill, avoiding paths and clearings while maintaining a pace that kept them ahead of their pursuers. Dr. Chen struggled to keep up, her academic lifestyle having ill-prepared her for this kind of physical demands. "Elena," she said during a brief rest, "if we survive this, I need to understand the full scope of what you are and what that means for human enhancement research." Elena checked her equipment and scanned the forest for signs of pursuit before responding. "Doctor, if we survive this, you're going to learn things about human potential that will challenge everything you thought you knew about the limitations of consciousness and physical capability." The sound of their pursuers was growing more distant, but Elena's expression remained grim. She knew that escape from the immediate tactical situation was only the first step in a much larger conflict. "What you've discovered about my abilities," Elena continued, "represents just the beginning of what's possible when enhancement technology is pushed beyond conventional boundaries. The question is whether humanity is ready for that knowledge, or whether it needs to be suppressed to prevent catastrophic consequences." Dr. Chen looked at Elena with new understanding. "You're not just an enhanced soldier, are you? Your proof of concept for something much more significant. Elena nodded slowly. And that's exactly why these people are willing to kill to either control me or eliminate me. Because what I represent isn't just military advantage, it's the future of human evolution. As they prepared to continue their escape, both women understood that the events of the past few hours had changed everything. Elena's carefully maintained cover was blown. Dr. Chen's research had revealed capabilities that challenged fundamental assumptions about human potential. And forces within the military establishment were willing to use extreme measures to control. The implications of that knowledge, the question now was whether they could survive long enough to determine whether enhanced human capabilities represented humanity's salvation or its doom. 3 hours later, Elena and Dr. Chen found themselves in a safe house that Elena had apparently prepared for exactly this kind of situation. The modest cabin, hidden deep in the Virginia woods, contained equipment and supplies that suggested Elena had been planning for contingencies that went far beyond her official mission at Quantico. "This is incredible," Dr. Chen said, examining communication equipment that looked years ahead of anything in the standard military inventory. "How long have you been preparing for something like this?" Elena was monitoring multiple communication channels, tracking the progress of the operation at Quantico and similar facilities around the country. "Since the day I realized that my enhancements might make me a target for elimination rather than an asset for development." The radio traffic Elena was monitoring painted a disturbing picture. Facilities associated with human enhancement research were being hit simultaneously, and the coordination suggested an operation planned at the highest levels of government. "Doctor," Elena said, "your research data may be the only comprehensive record of enhancement capabilities that survives this purge. That makes you either incredibly valuable or incredibly dangerous, depending on who's asking." Dr. Chen was reviewing her data on a secure laptop, beginning to understand that her investigation of Elena's abilities had uncovered something much larger than enhanced marksmanship training. "Elena, the neurological patterns I documented in your students, they suggest that enhanced capabilities can be transferred through training methods that we don't fully understand. If that's true, then the implications for human development are staggering." Elena paused in her monitoring to look at Dr. Chen directly. "What if I told you that my abilities aren't entirely the result of technological enhancement? What if there are aspects of human potential that current science doesn't recognize?" Dr. Chen felt her scientific worldview shifting as the implications of Elena's question became clear. "Are you saying that your capabilities include elements that can't be explained by conventional enhancement technology?" "I'm saying that the line between technology and human potential may not be as clear as we've assumed. And that may be exactly why some people consider enhanced individuals like me to be an existential threat." As Dr. Chen processed this information, Elena's communication equipment detected incoming transmissions that made her expression grow even more serious. "What is it?" Dr. Chen asked. "Communications from the Marines in my training program. They're being detained for comprehensive medical evaluation by teams that aren't part of normal military medical services." Dr. Chen felt a chill of apprehension. "They're going after your students?" Elena nodded grimly. "The enhanced capabilities we developed in those Marines represent evidence that could expose the true nature of human enhancement research. Someone has decided that evidence needs to be controlled or eliminated." The radio traffic continued, painting a picture of a coordinated operation that was targeting anyone associated with Elena's program. The Marines who had achieved enhanced marksmanship capabilities under her instruction were being isolated and subjected to procedures that sounded more like interrogation than medical evaluation. "We have to help them," Dr. Chen said. Elena was already formulating a response plan that drew on tactical capabilities she'd never revealed during her time at Quantico. "Doctor, helping them will require actions that go well beyond anything in my official authority." Are you prepared for the consequences of what that might involve? Dr. Chen looked at the data she'd compiled on Elena's abilities and the enhanced capabilities of her students. The research represented a breakthrough in understanding human potential that could benefit millions of people or be weaponized in ways that could threaten fundamental human freedom. Elena, if we don't act, then everything we've learned about enhanced human capabilities will be buried along with the people who demonstrated them. That can't be allowed to happen. Elena studied Dr. Chen's face, seeing a determination that went beyond academic curiosity. The researcher had recognized that they were facing a moment that would define the future of human enhancement research. Doctor, what I'm about to propose will put us in direct opposition to forces within our own government. Once we cross that line, there's no going back to our previous lives. Dr. Chen's response was immediate. Then we'd better make sure we succeed. Elena activated secure communication equipment and began reaching out to contacts that existed well outside normal military channels. As she worked, Dr. Chen realized that the woman she'd been studying possessed resources and connections that suggested a background far more complex than any official records indicated. I'm calling in favors from people who understand that enhanced human capabilities represent something too important to be controlled by a single government agency, Elena explained as she worked. But this kind of operation requires resources that I can't access alone. The communication equipment crackled to life with responses from individuals whose voices Dr. Chen didn't recognize but whose immediate willingness to assist Elena suggested relationships built on mutual trust and shared objectives. Phoenix, this is Guardian, came one voice through encrypted channels. We've been monitoring the situation at Quantico and similar facilities. Operation appears to be coordinated at executive-level authority. Elena's expression grew even more serious. Guardian, I need extraction support for approximately 12 individuals currently being held for medical evaluation at various facilities. Enhanced personnel whose capabilities could expose broader programs. Understood, Phoenix. Resources are available, but extraction will require direct action against government facilities. Are you prepared for that level of escalation? Elena looked at Dr. Chen, who nodded without hesitation. Affirmative, Guardian. Enhanced capabilities represent too significant a development to be suppressed. We're going operational. Dr. Chen listened to the exchange with growing amazement. Elena was coordinating with what appeared to be a network of individuals who possessed capabilities and resources that rivaled those of government agencies. Elena, Dr. Chen said when the communication ended, who are these people? Enhanced. Individuals like myself, and researchers who understand that human potential shouldn't be limited by political considerations. We've been preparing for the possibility that government enhancement programs might be terminated to prevent capabilities from spreading beyond official control. Elena began assembling equipment for what was clearly going to be a complex operation. Weapons, communication devices, and tactical gear that suggested preparation for direct confrontation with government forces. The Marines in my program aren't just exceptional marksmen anymore, Doctor. They've developed capabilities that prove enhanced. Human potential can be transferred through training methods that we don't fully understand. That makes them either incredibly valuable assets or existential threats, depending on your perspective. Doctor, Chen was beginning to understand the scope of what Elena was proposing. You're talking about breaking into government facilities to rescue people who've been detained for possessing abilities that some people consider dangerous. I'm talking about preventing the suppression of human potential that could benefit all of humanity, Elena corrected. Enhanced capabilities aren't just about military applications, Doctor. They represent the next stage of human development. As Elena prepared for the operation, Dr. Chen found herself making a decision that would define the rest of her career. What do you need me to do? Elena paused in her preparations and studied Dr. Chen with new respect. I need you to document everything we're about to do. The capabilities we demonstrate, the methods we use, the results we achieve. Because if we succeed, your research will become the foundation for understanding what enhanced humans are truly capable of. The next few hours passed in intensive preparation. Elena's contacts provided intelligence about the facilities where her Marines were being held, along with tactical support that suggested a network of enhanced individuals who had been planning for exactly this kind of situation. As they prepared to leave the safe house, Dr. Chen realized that she was about to witness the true extent of enhanced human capabilities. Elena's demonstration at Quantico had been impressive, but it had represented only a fraction of what was possible when enhancement technology was pushed beyond conventional limitations. "Doctor," Elena said as they prepared to depart, "what you're about to see will challenge everything you thought you knew about human potential. Enhanced individuals operating at full capability, using abilities that current science considers impossible." Dr. Chen checked her portable recording equipment, understanding that she was about to document events that could revolutionize understanding of human enhancement. "I'm ready." Elena's expression grew distant as she made final preparations, and Dr. Chen could see her transitioning into an operational mindset that went far beyond anything she displayed as a marksmanship instructor. "Doctor, the people who ordered this suppression operation believe that enhanced human capabilities represent a threat to existing power structures. They're not entirely wrong. What we're about to demonstrate could change the fundamental relationship between individuals and institutions." As they left the safe house and began moving toward their first target, Dr. Chen understood that she was no longer just observing enhanced human capabilities. She was participating in an operation that could determine whether those capabilities would be suppressed or allowed to develop naturally. The question now was whether Elena and her network of enhanced individuals possessed enough capability to challenge government forces that were willing to kill to maintain control over human enhancement research. The detention facility where Master Sergeant Morrison and 3 other Marines from Elena's program were being held looked like a standard medical research building from the outside. But Elena's enhanced senses detected security measures that suggested a much more sinister purpose. As she and Dr. Chen observed the facility from a concealed position, Elena's tactical assessment painted a disturbing picture. 46 security personnel, rotating shifts every 6 hours. Electronic surveillance systems that include facial recognition and movement tracking. Communication jammers that would prevent any calls for help from inside the facility. Elena paused, her enhanced hearing detecting something that made her expression grow grim. And medical equipment that sounds more like interrogation technology than diagnostic instruments. Dr. Chen was documenting everything through recording equipment that Elena's contacts had provided, but she found herself struggling to process the implications of what they were observing. "Elena, if this is how the government treats enhanced individuals, then your abilities represent a threat that goes beyond military applications." Elena nodded, her attention focused on the tactical challenge ahead. "Doctor, enhanced human capabilities challenge fundamental assumptions about what individuals can achieve independently. That makes us either incredible assets or existential threats, depending on your perspective on institutional power." The communication equipment crackled with reports from Elena's network. Similar operations were underway at facilities across the country, each targeting individuals who had demonstrated enhanced capabilities or conducted research into human potential. "Phoenix, this is Raven," came a voice through encrypted channels. "Situation at Facility 7 is more complex than anticipated. Enhanced subjects are being subjected to procedures that appear designed to reverse or suppress their capabilities." Elena's jaw tightened. "Understood. Raven, execute Extraction Protocol Delta. Enhanced individuals represent too significant a development to be suppressed through medical intervention." Dr. Chen listened to the exchange with growing alarm. They're trying to reverse. The enhanced capabilities? Is that even possible? Unknown, Elena replied. But the attempt suggests that some people consider enhanced humans to be such a threat that they're willing to risk permanent neurological damage to eliminate our capabilities. Elena began final preparations for what she termed tactical intervention. The equipment she assembled included weapons and technology that Dr. Chen didn't recognize, along with devices that seemed designed to counter the security measures they'd observed. Doctor, what you're about to witness will demonstrate enhanced human capabilities under operational conditions. Combat-level application of abilities that push beyond conventional human limitations. Dr. Chen checked her recording equipment, understanding that she was about to document something unprecedented. I'm ready. Elena's transformation was immediate and dramatic. The woman who had impressed Marines with exceptional marksmanship became something that moved with lethal precision, every action calculated for maximum efficiency and minimum exposure. Her approach to the facility demonstrated tactical awareness that seemed to anticipate security responses before they occurred. Enhanced spatial reasoning allows for tactical planning that considers variables most people never recognize, Elena explained as she moved. Micro-variations in guard routines, electronic signature patterns from surveillance equipment, even the acoustic properties of different building materials. She bypassed the facility's outer security with techniques that Dr. Chen couldn't follow, moving through detection zones with timing that seemed impossible to calculate. Elena's enhanced senses allowed her to navigate security measures that would have stopped conventional infiltration attempts. Inside the facility, Elena's capabilities became even more apparent. She moved through corridors with absolute certainty about the locations of security personnel, avoiding detection while advancing toward the areas where her Marines were being held. Movement patterns 3 floors above us indicate medical procedures in progress, Elena reported through sub-vocalized communication. Enhanced hearing allows for assessment of equipment operation and personnel positioning. Dr. Chen, following at a distance, was amazed by Elena's ability to gather information through senses that seemed to operate well beyond normal human capability. She was listening to conversations through soundproof walls, detecting the emotional states of personnel through subtle environmental cues, even sensing the presence of individuals through building materials. They reached the medical wing where Morrison and the other Marines were being held. Through observation equipment, Dr. Chen could see her worst fears confirmed. The enhanced Marines were connected to devices that appeared designed to suppress or reverse their neurological modifications. Forced neural inhibition, Elena said grimly. They're trying to chemically suppress the enhanced capabilities we developed. Dr. Chen documented the scene with equipment that captured both visual and neurological data. This is medical experimentation without consent. It violates every principle of research ethics. Elena was already formulating a rescue plan that demonstrated tactical thinking at speeds that challenged Dr. Chen's ability to follow. Doctor, enhanced cognitive processing allows for real-time assessment of multiple tactical variables. I can calculate guard response patterns, security system vulnerabilities, and extraction routes simultaneously. The rescue operation that followed demonstrated enhanced human capabilities at levels that exceeded even Dr. Chen's enhanced expectations. Elena moved through the facility with precision that seemed supernatural, neutralizing security personnel with techniques that left them unconscious but unharmed. Bypassing electronic systems with methods that suggested understanding of technology at a fundamental level. Enhanced individuals aren't just faster or stronger than baseline humans, Elena explained as she worked. We process information and respond to environmental stimuli in ways that approach the theoretical limits of human potential. She reached Morrison and the other Marine. The next few hours passed in intensive preparation. Elena's contacts provided intelligence about the facilities where her Marines were being held, along with tactical support that suggested a network of enhanced individuals who had been planning for exactly this kind of situation. As they prepared to leave the safe house, Dr. Chen realized that she was about to witness the true extent of enhanced human capabilities. Elena's demonstration at Quantico had been impressive, but it had represented only a fraction of what was possible when enhancement technology was pushed beyond conventional limitations. "Doctor," Elena said as they prepared to depart. Elena was already implementing extraction procedures that demonstrated logistical planning at levels that exceeded normal human capability. "Doctor, enhanced humans represent a paradigm shift that some people find profoundly threatening. When individuals can achieve capabilities that approach institutional levels of effectiveness, existing power structures become vulnerable." Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. The extraction itself was a masterpiece of tactical coordination. Elena's network provided support that suggested an organization of enhanced individuals who had been preparing for exactly this kind of operation. Security systems were neutralized, personnel were bypassed or disabled, and the Marines were evacuated with efficiency that challenged conventional understanding of small unit tactics. As they moved Morrison and the other affected Marines to safety, Dr. Chen realized that she was witnessing something that would fundamentally change her understanding of human potential. Elena wasn't just an enhanced individual, she was part of a network of people who possessed capabilities that could challenge government authority when applied coordinately. "Doctor," Elena said as they reached the extraction point, "what you've documented tonight proves that enhanced human capabilities represent something that some people consider an existential threat to existing institutions. The question is whether humanity is ready for that level of individual empowerment." Dr. Chen looked at her recordings, understanding that she possessed evidence of capabilities that could revolutionize human development or be suppressed to prevent challenges to existing power structures. "Elena, if enhanced individuals can achieve this level of capability, what happens when these abilities become more widespread?" Elena's expression grew thoughtful as they waited for extraction support. "That's the question that's driving this suppression operation, Doctor. Enhanced humans don't just represent military advantage, we represent the possibility that individuals might no longer need institutions to achieve extraordinary things." The extraction vehicles arrived with precision timing that suggested coordination at levels typically associated with major military operations. As they prepared to evacuate with the rescued Marines, Dr. Chen realized that she had become part of something much larger than a research project. "Elena, your network, how many enhanced individuals are there?" Elena's smile was enigmatic as medical personnel began treating the affected Marines. "Enough to ensure that human enhancement research continues, regardless of government attempts to suppress it." As they departed the facility, Dr. Chen understood that the events of the past few hours had changed everything about her understanding of enhanced human capabilities and their implications for society. She was no longer just a researcher studying exceptional abilities. She was a participant in a conflict that would determine whether human potential would be allowed to develop naturally or be controlled by institutional authority. The Marines were beginning to recover from the suppression procedures, and as their enhanced capabilities returned, Dr. Chen could see the gratitude in their eyes as they looked at Elena. She had not only given them abilities they'd never imagined possible, she had risked everything to ensure those abilities wouldn't be taken away. "Ma'am," Morrison said weakly as his enhanced awareness began returning, "I don't know what they did to us in there, but I could feel my capabilities being suppressed. It was like losing parts of myself I didn't know existed until you taught us to access them." Elena nodded, her expression showing the kind of understanding that came from personal experience with enhancement technology. "Sergeant, What you experienced was an attempt to reverse neurological development that represents the next stage of human evolution. Some people consider that development to be too dangerous to allow. Dr. Chen was documenting the Marine's recovery. Noting the return of enhanced sensory awareness and cognitive processing that characterized Elena's training program. The neurological changes are reversing the suppression effects. Their enhanced capabilities are returning to baseline levels. As they traveled toward a secure facility where the Marines could complete their recovery, Dr. Chen realized that she was witnessing something unprecedented, a group of enhanced individuals who possessed capabilities that challenged conventional understanding of human limitation and who were willing to risk everything to protect those capabilities from suppression. "Elena," Dr. Chen said, "what happens now? Government forces are actively targeting enhanced individuals, and your network has just conducted operations against federal facilities. This can't end peacefully." Elena's expression grew serious as she considered the implications of their actions. "Doctor, we've reached a point where enhanced human capabilities and institutional authority are fundamentally incompatible. What happens next will determine whether human potential is allowed to develop freely or is controlled by people who consider individual empowerment to be a threat." The communication equipment crackled with reports from other operations around the country. Enhanced individuals and researchers were being extracted from government facilities, but the coordination required for these operations was exposing the extent of Elena's network to government surveillance. "Phoenix, this is Command," came a voice through secure channels. "Operations are successful, but government response is escalating. They're treating enhanced individual networks as domestic terrorism threats." Elena acknowledged the report, but her expression showed that she had expected this escalation. "Command, enhanced humans were always going to be perceived as threats by people who benefit from current power structures. The question is whether we have enough capability to ensure our survival." Dr. Chen listened to the exchange with growing understanding that they had passed a point of no return. Enhanced individuals were now in direct conflict with government authority, and the resolution of that conflict would determine the future of human enhancement research. "Elena, if enhanced humans are being classified as domestic threats, then your network is essentially at war with the government." Elena nodded grimly. "Doctor, when institutional authority is threatened by individual capability, conflict becomes inevitable. Enhanced humans represent a level of personal empowerment that challenges fundamental assumptions about the relationship between individuals and institutions." As they arrived at the secure facility where the Marines would complete their recovery, Dr. Chen realized that her research into Elena's capabilities had thrust her into the center of a conflict that would define the future of human evolution. The question now was whether enhanced individuals possessed enough capability to survive government efforts to suppress them, and whether humanity was ready for a future where individual potential was no longer limited by institutional authority. The secure facility that served as Elena's network headquarters was unlike anything Dr. Chen had expected. Hidden beneath a seemingly ordinary industrial complex, it contained technology and resources that rivaled those of government agencies, along with personnel whose capabilities suggested extensive enhancement. "Welcome to Haven," Elena said as they descended through multiple security levels. The first facility designed specifically for enhanced human operations. Dr. Chen found herself surrounded by individuals who moved with the same preternatural awareness that characterized Elena, each demonstrating capabilities that pushed beyond conventional human limitations. Some showed obvious signs of technological enhancement, while others seemed to possess abilities that defied easy categorization. "How many people are we talking about?" Dr. Chen asked as she observed the facility's operations. "Approximately 300 enhanced individuals worldwide," Elena replied, "along with supporting personnel who understand that human potential shouldn't be limited by political considerations." the medical wing where Morrison and the other Marines were being treated, demonstrated technology that exceeded anything Dr. Chen had seen in conventional medical facilities. The personnel treating them moved with precision that suggested both enhanced capabilities and extensive training in dealing with neurological modifications. "Dr. Chen," said a woman who introduced herself as Dr. Sarah Kim, the facility's chief medical officer, "Elena has briefed me on your research. What you've documented about capability transfer through training methods represents a significant breakthrough in understanding enhanced human potential." Dr. Chen was amazed by the sophistication of the medical monitoring equipment. "This technology is years ahead of anything in standard medical research. How did you develop these capabilities?" Dr. Kim smiled, and Dr. Chen noticed that her movements showed the same enhanced precision that characterized all the personnel in the facility. "When you're working with enhanced individuals, Doctor, conventional medical technology becomes inadequate very quickly. We've had to develop new approaches to monitoring and treating capabilities that officially don't exist." As Dr. Chen toured the facility, she began to understand that Elena's network represented something unprecedented, a community of enhanced individuals who had developed independent capabilities that rivaled those of government agencies. They possessed advanced technology, sophisticated medical facilities, and most importantly, coordination between individuals whose capabilities exceeded normal human limitations. "Elena," Dr. Chen said, "this represents an infrastructure that could support enhanced human development independently of government oversight. That's exactly what authorities are afraid of." Elena nodded, her expression showing awareness of the implications. "Doctor, enhanced humans were always going to outgrow institutional control eventually. What you're seeing here is the beginning of post-institutional human development." The communication center buzzed with activity as Elena's network coordinated responses to government operations around the world. Enhanced individuals were being targeted for detention or elimination, but the network's capability for intelligence gathering and tactical response was proving more effective than government efforts to suppress them. "Phoenix, this is European Command," came a report through secure channels. "Government operations in multiple countries are targeting enhanced research. Appears to be coordinated at international level." Elena acknowledged the report while reviewing tactical displays that showed the global scope of the suppression operations. "Understood, Eurocommand. Enhanced human capabilities represent a paradigm shift that transcends national boundaries. International coordination was inevitable." Dr. Chen was documenting everything, understanding that she was witnessing events that would be historically significant regardless of their outcome. "Elena, if governments worldwide are coordinating to suppress enhanced humans, then your network is facing opposition that goes beyond any single nation's capabilities. Which is why enhanced individuals have been developing international coordination for several years," Elena replied. "Doctor, when you possess capabilities that challenge institutional authority, you learn to think globally about survival and development." The facility's research division was conducting studies that went far beyond anything Dr. Chen had seen in conventional academic settings. Enhanced individuals were developing new techniques for capability transfer, exploring the theoretical limits of human potential, and investigating possibilities that challenged fundamental assumptions about consciousness and physical capability. "Dr. Chen," said Dr. Marcus Webb, apparently a different person from Colonel Webb, who served as the facility's research director, "Elena's training methods represent just the beginning of what's possible when enhanced individuals work together to develop human potential." Dr. Chen examined research data that showed capabilities she would have considered impossible weeks earlier. This suggests that enhanced humans can achieve levels of coordination and effectiveness that approach collective intelligence. Dr. Webb nodded enthusiastically. "When individuals possess enhanced sensory awareness and accelerated cognitive processing, Traditional limitations on human cooperation begin to break down. We're developing capabilities that blur the line between individual and collective achievement. As the day progressed, Dr. Chen watched the facility's personnel coordinate responses to government operations with efficiency that exceeded anything she'd observed in institutional settings. Enhanced individuals were sharing sensory information in real time, coordinating tactical responses across vast distances, and developing solutions to complex problems at speeds that challenged conventional understanding of human decision-making. "Elena," Dr. Chen said, "what you've developed here isn't just enhanced human capability. It's a new form of human organization that could replace conventional institutions." Elena's expression grew thoughtful as she considered the implications. "Doctor, that's exactly what makes enhanced humans such a threat to existing power structures. We're not just better soldiers or more effective researchers. We're proof that individuals might not need institutions to achieve extraordinary things." The evening briefing brought reports that made the scope of the conflict clear. Government forces worldwide were conducting operations against enhanced individuals and research facilities, but the enhanced networks were proving more resilient and adaptable than authorities had anticipated. Enhanced coordination is allowing us to respond to suppression operations faster than institutional decision-making processes can adapt, Elena explained as she reviewed global situation reports. Individual empowerment combined with network coordination creates capabilities that challenge conventional organizational structures. Dr. Chen realized that she was witnessing the emergence of something genuinely new in human history, a form of human organization based on enhanced individual capability rather than institutional hierarchy. The implications were staggering, and she began to understand why government authorities were willing to use extreme measures to prevent its development. "Elena, if enhanced humans can achieve this level of coordination and capability, what prevents you from simply replacing existing governments?" Elena's response was immediate and serious. "Because enhanced humans understand that individual empowerment requires respecting the autonomy of others, Doctor. We're not trying to control people. We're trying to free them from limitations that institutions have convinced them are necessary." As Dr. Chen prepared to rest after the most challenging day of her professional life, she understood that her research had led her to the center of a conflict that would determine the future of human development. Enhanced individuals possessed capabilities that could revolutionize human potential, but those same capabilities threatened institutional structures that some people would kill to preserve. The question now was whether enhanced humans possessed enough capability to survive long enough to demonstrate that individual empowerment could create a better world than institutional control. We're approaching the climactic moments of this epic tale, and the tension is at its peak. Creating stories of this scope and detail requires not just writing talent, but careful plotting, character development, and attention to every. As Dr. Chen toured the facility, she began to understand that Elena's network represented something unprecedented, a community of enhanced individuals who had developed independent capabilities that rivaled those of government agencies. They possessed advanced technology, sophisticated medical facilities, and most importantly, coordination between individuals whose capabilities exceeded normal human limitations. "Elena," Dr. Chen said, "this represents an infrastructure that could support enhanced human development independently of government oversight. That's exactly what authorities are afraid of." Elena nodded, her expression showing awareness of the implications. "Doctor, enhanced humans were always going to outgrow institutional control eventually. What you're seeing here is the beginning of post-institutional human development." The communication center buzzed with activity as Elena's network coordinated responses to government operations around the world. Enhanced individuals were being targeted for detention or elimination, but the network's capability for intelligence gathering and tactical response was proving more effective than government efforts to suppress them. Phoenix, this is European. Command, came a report through secure channels. Government operations in multiple countries are targeting enhanced research. Appears to be coordinated at international level. Elena acknowledged the report while reviewing tactical displays that showed the global scope of the suppression operations. Understood, Euro Command. Enhanced human capabilities represent a paradigm shift that transcends national boundaries. International coordination was inevitable. Dr. Chen was documenting everything, understanding that she was witnessing events that would be historically significant regardless of their outcome. Elena, if governments worldwide are coordinating to suppress enhanced humans, then your network is facing opposition that goes beyond any single nation's capabilities. Which is why enhanced individuals have been developing international coordination for several years, Elena replied. Doctor, when you possess capabilities that challenge institutional authority, you learn to think globally about survival and development. The facility's research division was conducting studies that went far beyond anything Dr. Chen had seen in conventional academic settings. Enhanced individuals were developing new techniques for capability transfer, exploring the theoretical limits of human potential, and investigating possibilities that challenged fundamental assumptions about consciousness and physical capability. Dr. Chen, said Dr. Marcus Webb, apparently a different person from Colonel Webb, who served as the facility's research director. Elena's training methods represent just the beginning of what's possible when enhanced individuals work together to develop human potential. Elena's expression grew grim as she realized the full implications of what they were facing. Doctor, what we're seeing is the difference between enhancement for institutional control versus enhancement for individual empowerment. The question is which philosophy produces more effective capability. The battle that followed would have challenged conventional understanding even if Dr. Chen hadn't been documenting it. Enhanced individuals on both sides demonstrated capabilities that pushed beyond normal human limitations, but the fundamental difference in their approaches became apparent quickly. Elena's network moved with fluid coordination that seemed almost telepathic, sharing sensory information and tactical awareness in ways that allowed them to respond to threats before conventional observation would have detected them. Their government opponents showed impressive individual capabilities, but their coordination remained limited by institutional command structures. Enhanced individuals working toward common goals demonstrate emergent capabilities that exceed simple addition of individual abilities. Elena explained as she directed defensive operations. Collective enhancement through voluntary cooperation versus individual enhancement under institutional authority. Dr. Chen watched enhanced humans engage in combat that redefined her understanding of human potential. Movement that seemed impossible, sensory awareness that detected threats through building materials, tactical coordination that anticipated enemy actions before they were implemented. It was like watching a new species of human in action. Elena, the capabilities being demonstrated here prove that enhanced humans represent a genuine evolutionary leap. This isn't just improved performance, it's a qualitatively different form of human existence. Elena was coordinating with enhanced individuals throughout the facility, while simultaneously engaging government forces that had breached the outer defensive perimeters. Her ability to process multiple tactical situations simultaneously while maintaining combat effectiveness demonstrated cognitive capabilities that exceeded theoretical human limitations. Doctor, enhanced human consciousness operates differently than baseline human awareness. We can maintain parallel attention streams that allow for complex multitasking under extreme stress conditions. The government assault teams were advancing through the facility with professional efficiency, but Elena's network was demonstrating defensive capabilities that challenged every tactical assumption. Enhanced individuals were anticipating assault routes, coordinating responses that seemed to violate conventional communication limitations, and achieving tactical effects that should have required much larger numbers. Enhanced spatial awareness allows for environmental manipulation that goes beyond conventional tactical thinking. Elena reported as she guided Dr. Chen through corridors that seemed to shift and change configuration. We can modify facility layout in real time to counter assault patterns. Dr. Chen realized that the facility itself had been designed with enhancement capabilities in mind. Walls that could be reconfigured, passages that could be created or sealed, defensive systems that responded to enhanced human sensory input rather than conventional electronics. It was architecture designed for people whose capabilities exceeded normal human limitations. The conflict intensified as both sides deployed capabilities that pushed beyond anything Dr. Chen had seen in conventional military operations. Government forces were using weapons and tactics specifically designed to counter enhanced targets, while Elena's network was demonstrating abilities that seemed to approach the theoretical limits of human potential. Enhanced coordination is allowing us to achieve tactical effects that would normally require unit-level organization, Elena explained as she coordinated defensive responses across multiple facility levels. Individual enhancement combined with voluntary cooperation creates capabilities that challenge institutional military doctrine. Dr. Chen was amazed by the level of tactical sophistication being demonstrated by both sides. This wasn't just a firefight, it was a clash between different philosophies of human enhancement, with each side demonstrating capabilities that proved their approach to developing human potential. Elena, the government forces are showing enhanced capabilities that suggest they've developed their own programs. But their coordination seems limited compared to your network. Elena nodded while maintaining tactical awareness that seemed to encompass the entire facility. Institutional enhancement focuses on individual capability under centralized control, Dr. Network enhancement develops collective capability through voluntary coordination. Different approaches produce different results. The battle's progression demonstrated the practical differences between these enhancement philosophies. Government forces showed impressive individual capabilities, but struggled with the kind of adaptive coordination that Elena's network maintained. Naturally, they were enhanced soldiers following orders, while Elena's people were enhanced individuals working toward common goals. Doctor, Elena said as she guided their movement toward the facility's most secure areas, what you're documenting proves that enhanced human potential can develop in multiple directions. The question is which approach creates capabilities that benefit humanity rather than just institutional power. As they reached the facility's core research areas, Dr. Chen realized that Elena was implementing a contingency plan that would preserve the most critical enhancement research regardless of the battle's outcome. Advanced computer systems were uploading data to secure networks that existed beyond government reach, ensuring that knowledge about enhanced human capabilities would survive even if the facility was captured. Elena, you're preserving the research even if you can't preserve the facility. Elena's expression showed the kind of determination that came from understanding the historical significance of what they were protecting. Doctor, enhanced human capabilities represent knowledge that belongs to all humanity, not just the institutions that want to control it. Whatever happens here, that knowledge needs to survive. The final phase of the assault brought government forces to the facilities. Core areas where Elena's most capable enhanced individuals were making their stand. The combat that followed demonstrated abilities that challenged every assumption Dr. Chen had held about human limitations. Enhanced individuals moved with speed and precision that seemed supernatural, coordinated through awareness that transcended conventional communication, and achieved tactical effects that defied conventional military understanding. But their government opponents had come prepared for exactly this level of capability, with weapons and tactics designed specifically to counter enhanced human advantages. Doctor, Elena said as the final confrontation approached, enhanced human capabilities are about to be tested at their absolute limits. What you document in the next few minutes may determine whether humanity embraces its potential or allows it to be suppressed by institutional fear. As Dr. Chen prepared to document what might be the last demonstration of free enhanced human capabilities, she understood that the outcome of this battle would determine whether human potential would be allowed to develop naturally or would be controlled by people who considered individual empowerment to be a threat to social stability. The question now was whether enhanced humans possessed enough capability to prove that individual empowerment could create a better world than institutional control, or whether their abilities would be suppressed to preserve existing power structures. The final confrontation took place in Haven's Central Research Chamber, where Elena made her last stand surrounded by technology that represented the pinnacle of enhanced human development. Dr. Chen watched from a concealed position as government forces, led by their own enhanced operatives, converged on the facility's most critical areas. Colonel Sarah Martinez, the government operations enhanced field commander, moved with capabilities that clearly rivaled Elena's own. Her approach to the research chamber demonstrated tactical awareness and physical capability that exceeded normal human limitations, but her methods showed the rigid thinking that characterized institutional enhancement programs. Sergeant Vasquez, Colonel Martinez called out as her forces secured the chamber's perimeter. "You're surrounded by superior numbers and firepower. Surrender now, and your people will be treated according to enhanced individual protocols." Elena emerged from cover with the fluid grace that had characterized all her movements since Dr. Chen had first observed her. Even facing overwhelming odds, she projected the kind of confidence that came from understanding capabilities that exceeded conventional limitations. "Colonel Martinez," Elena replied, "enhanced individuals don't surrender to institutional authority. We transcend it." "What?" followed challenged every assumption Dr. Chen held about combat, tactics, and human capability. Elena moved through the government forces with precision that seemed to violate physical laws, her enhanced awareness allowing her to anticipate and counter attacks before they were fully implemented. But more importantly, she was demonstrating something that Colonel Martinez's institutional training hadn't prepared her for: the difference between enhanced individual capability and enhanced human consciousness. "Doctor," Elena called out as she engaged multiple opponents simultaneously, "enhanced consciousness isn't just about faster reflexes or improved accuracy. It's about understanding the fundamental interconnectedness of all systems, including human opponents." Dr. Chen watched in amazement as Elena seemed to flow around her opponent's attacks, moving with timing that suggested she could predict their actions before they'd fully decided on them. She wasn't just fighting enhanced soldiers, she was demonstrating a level of awareness that transcended individual consciousness. Colonel Martinez was adapting to Elena's capabilities with the professionalism that characterized the best enhanced operatives. But her institutional training limited her to tactical thinking that Elena had moved beyond years earlier. She was fighting an enhanced individual. Elena was operating as an expression of enhanced human potential. Enhanced institutional training focuses on controlling variables, Elena explained as she continued to demonstrate capabilities that exceeded her opponent's ability to counter. Enhanced consciousness learns to harmonize with systems rather than dominating them. The battle became a demonstration of different approaches to human enhancement. Colonel Martinez and her team showed impressive capabilities developed through institutional programs designed to create enhanced soldiers who would remain under centralized control. Elena demonstrated abilities that had developed through voluntary enhancement aimed at maximizing individual potential within cooperative networks. "Dr. Chen," Colonel Martinez called out during a brief pause in the engagement, "your research has documented capabilities that represent a threat to social stability. Enhanced individuals who can't be controlled by institutional authority pose existential risks to organized society." Dr. Chen found herself responding despite the danger of revealing her position. "Colonel," Enhanced human capabilities represent potential that could benefit all humanity. Suppressing that potential to maintain institutional control serves no one except those who benefit from limiting human development. Elena used the momentary distraction to implement a tactical response that demonstrated enhanced human capabilities at their most sophisticated level. Rather than simply defeating her opponents, she began demonstrating why enhanced consciousness represented something qualitatively different from enhanced physical capability. Enhanced awareness allows for understanding of complex systems including human motivation and social dynamics, Elena said as she moved through government forces with precision that left them disabled but unharmed. We don't need to destroy institutional authority. We can demonstrate its obsolescence. Dr. Chen watched as Elena systematically neutralized her opponents using methods that showed perfect understanding of their enhanced capabilities and psychological conditioning. She wasn't overpowering them, she was demonstrating that institutional enhancement created limitations that network enhancement could transcend. Colonel Martinez was beginning to realize that her training hadn't prepared her for an opponent who understood institutional psychology as well as combat tactics. Elena was fighting not just her enhanced capabilities, but the entire conceptual framework that had shaped her development. Enhanced individuals trained by institutions learn to optimize within existing systems, Elena explained as she continued her demonstration. Enhanced consciousness learns to transcend systemic limitations entirely. The final phase of the confrontation became less about combat and more about education. Elena was showing Colonel Martinez and her team that enhanced human potential could develop in directions that institutional programs had never considered, capabilities that emphasized transcendence rather than domination, cooperation rather than control. Colonel Martinez, Elena said as the last of the government forces found themselves disabled but unharmed. Enhanced human consciousness isn't about creating better soldiers. It's about evolving beyond the need for conflict entirely. Dr. Chen emerged from concealment to find the research chamber filled with government personnel who had been neutralized through methods that demonstrated capabilities far beyond anything she'd previously documented. Elena had defeated a force of enhanced soldiers without